Hello, and thank you all for taking the time to learn about our project. My name is Miguel Ramlatchan, and I'm from Old Dominion University. And we're presenting four facets of needs assessment and analysis for the design of online learning systems. Oh, and before I get started, I do want us to take a time and thank our moderator and everyone else who are behind the scenes here at AACT, who are hard at work putting together our virtual conference. We certainly do appreciate that. So our virtual presentation, we're taking a look at needs assessment and analysis, especially a systemic approach, as well as taking a look at our focus on four specific areas that really highlight the need for a in-depth and thorough needs assessment and analysis when designing an instructional environment or a learning environment. And so needs assessment and analysis, especially in a situational context, and dovetailing into the theme of the conference this year. Um, it's really important to look into the culture of the learner, the learner's environment, the context of the learning as we take and consider all of those aspects into a needs assessment and analysis that would eventually lead into an instruction design. We also take a systemic approach where a system defined as a number of components that are all organized together toward a common goal. And we'll see that as we look into the different levels of the model that we used. And then a needs assessment sort of defined is that gap or discrepancy between where a person, organization, institution is and where they want to be. And so the gap between those two states of existence, if you will. And so our research was informed by Olschultz and Kumar's needs assessment model, which essentially defines three phases of an analysis approach. The first is that pre-assessment phase where we're really defining what the problems are, what the gaps are, and especially in the context in our context, defining if there's a true need for an instructional intervention. The assessment phase, the second phase, that's where we as instructional designers are gathering and collecting data from the clients and really delving into defining what the needs of the eventual intervention would be. And then the third phase is post-assessment and analysis. That's where we're beginning to form solutions and begin to inform the client of next phases of the design based on the findings of our needs assessment and analysis. And then within all three of these phases, really that systemic approach where we're looking at all three or three phases of a system. The first level is the direct user client. Level two would be the service providers who are working closely or closest with those level one students. In this case, our instructors and teachers. And then level three of this three-level systemic approach is the support services and support staff. These would be everyone who are behind the scenes, who are supporting our instructors, who are in turn supporting our students. But what we also did was took a look at four specific areas and contexts that really highlight the importance of the systemic approach. The K through 12 environment, trade and industrial training and learning, higher education, and then corporate training. And so next, it's over to Jeremy and Meg, and we'll learn more about two of these specific areas.
Hi, my name is Jeremy McLaughlin, and I'm a PhD student at Old Dominion University. I'm also a high school physics teacher and building level technology coach. As Dr. Ramlatchan mentioned a few moments ago, the first step in any needs assessment is identifying a performance gap. For better or worse, at the K-12 level, that gap is often identified for us through standardized tests from the state or local level. Once these gaps have been identified, only then can we move to trying to find a solution that could solve the problem at hand. In trying to find these solutions at the K-12 level, we must first consider 5 key aspects to any possible solution. This starts with the stakeholders, the students, and their parents. We have to consider their ability and willingness to implement any solution that we propose. In the COVID-19 era, many of the solutions that we're recommending involve technology. So we also need to examine each student's access to not only internet, but appropriate computing devices. Next, we must examine the availability of technical support. These students might be working in physical isolation, but even when they're not, they cannot be expected to begin using new technologies without any assistance. That technical support may come in the form of family and friends, but the institution implementing the solution must ultimately bear the burden of that support. Oftentimes, that technical support falls on the teachers in the classrooms. So we must also consider the stress and anxiety levels of teachers as they implement new solutions, technological or otherwise. Teachers are already expected to do so much in their classrooms. It's only fair that they be given the proper support to implement any solutions that we as instructional designers suggest. Finally, we must provide extensive information on how to use the tools or solutions that we suggest. Even the greatest solution to the worst problem will ultimately fail if we can't provide proper training and support for all three levels of users: the students and their families, the teachers that support them, and the administration that supports the teachers. Meg?
Hi, my name is Meg Turley, and I am a doctoral student at Old Dominion University studying career and technical education with an emphasis in trade and industrial education. So, when talking about needs assessment and trade and industrial education, first thing is trade and industrial education is unique in that the training is primarily hands-on learning. In order to understand how to move hands-on learning to an online environment, a needs assessment could really help understand not only what it would take, but whether or not it was even possible. Trade and industrial education is workforce driven. You have to train on real equipment, the equipment they're using in the field. More often than not, that'll be difficult to pursue online just for that very reason alone. There are things that can be taught online in pieces, but the whole thing would be difficult. A needs assessment might be able to help answer that. It's also the cost of keeping up with technology. So it's already expensive to keep up with technology in the classroom, but now we're adding this additional online learning, which is going to create additional costs, and that's something that needs to be considered. There are some topics in trade and industrial education that just can't be taught online. There's a lot of practical application that needs to be learned hands-on and have practice to be able to master those skills, and that's something that would be difficult online. An example of that would be welding. You can learn the basic concepts of welding, but you can't necessarily learn the skills you need to be successful at welding unless you have hands-on learning. Teacher preparedness. We see this now with COVID. It's difficult to teach online. Now you compound that with moving hands-on instruction to the online environment. Teachers have to be prepared to teach online when they're used to being in the classroom. So that's something that a needs assessment could help address. And lastly, safety. Safety is paramount in trade and industrial education. You're typically working with equipment that could pose some kind of safety risk, and students need supervision when they're learning these skills and performing these tasks, and that would be difficult in an online environment. So these are just some considerations that needs assessment could help with and could help address and identify whether or not it was even possible to move online. So that's why it is so important.
Okay, so thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Meg. And so up next, the higher education aspect of where we focused. And so we talked and learned about the specific needs of students, but also their parents at this level. Again, taking a focus at the specific needs of the users and looking at those in particular. And so different aspects of those learners could be they could be traditional, directly out of high school, or are adult learners. So we definitely want to focus on the needs of those adult learners and their different levels of motivation for learning. The curriculum needs. So really important to consider that from a needs assessment perspective, especially the different colleges, departments, subject matters that would all bring different idiosyncrasies to an instructional design. An important aspect, especially when we think back to those levels in our systemic approach, the faculty development needs, the needs to support our faculty as best as possible, not only their pedagogical needs, but also their technology needs as well, especially most recently in terms of technology support and the importance of technology support. And this was, again, recently, some aspects that we need to consider definitely stronger in some of our designs, the bandwidth and technology availability. And then in the corporate learning context, this is important in all phases of or all aspects of needs analysis and design. But certainly for us as instructional designers is the need to confirm that a training gap exists. So is this really a knowledge gap, or is this something that can be resolved at an organizational or a management level? The importance of aligning that training with organizational goals, a strong aspect of something to consider when doing a needs assessment at a corporate or other functional organizational, considering the varying skills, backgrounds, and levels of motivation, as well as the readiness level of the organization that we're analyzing. That can be business and technology, process and content, essentially the learning goals, the culture, how well whatever we're designing will fit with again that situational context of our learners, as well as the human, as well as financial resources that would go into that instructional intervention. So, in summary, based on our research of these four different areas, certainly some similarities. We know that it's important to take in the situational context of our learners into our designs, especially at the needs assessment level. Really important to focus on the gap between the current state and the desired state that organization, entity, or individual wants to get to. Really, the importance of not prematurely jumping to solutions. The importance of that holistic, systemic, multi-level analysis. So the initial client, the interface with the client, as well as the supports behind the scenes. Also, some key differences along those similarities. The age and maturity level of our learners, obviously in that K through 12 environment compared to adult learners, but also differences between training and corporate learners as compared to higher education. So really important to take into consideration the culture, learning environment, and maturity level needs of those learners into our designs. Access to technology could be different amongst our learners, so important to consider. Learner motivation, we touched on that a bit, but really why the learner is here. And also the need to consider all levels of a system when designing an instructional system or putting together an instructional intervention for our clients. Okay. So that was our research project in a nutshell. We certainly do appreciate your time again, and we're certainly open during the Q&A session for your thoughts, comments, and suggestions. So thank you all very much.